Hello again, and welcome back to a new series of an aesthetic education. There's no denying it has been a while in between episodes. Now, before you ask, this show and its audience was not forgotten. How could it be, when it was the forum for so many enjoyable discussions? I won't deny that the gap between us grew longer than intended, but time does often play a trick on us. And what may have felt like the briefest of absences has in fact been the turn of many seasons. Our last conversation ended with our discussion of Beowulf, its many complexities, the longing for hearth and home, and its place as a foundational work of English literature. The tale of Beowulf is a frame that allows us to explore life, words, and trace our literary heritage. In art, frames are important, both the physical and the psychological. They change our perspective and focus our minds into seeking to understand not only the work of beauty before us, but ourselves. As Oscar Wilde once said, art, even the art of fullest scope and widest vision, can never really show us the external world. All that it shows us is our own soul, the one world of which we have any real cognizance. It is art, and art only, that reveals us to ourselves. In this series, we will be exploring the frames of different eras, those points in the history of art that coalesced around a unique set of explosive characters who, with their ingenuity, their passion, and creativity, were able to leave a mark of beauty upon this world. But first, we need to consider what elements actually go into these frames, and how we, as individuals, can best learn to see them in their full glory. In 1894, the Belgian artist Henri van de Velde wrote an article entitled A Clean Sweep for the Future of Art. A member of the group of Belgian artists called the 20, who began exhibiting together in 1883, Van de Velde was a man of strong opinions and high demands. At the beginning of the article, he displays his Ruskinian credentials very clearly, as he bemoans the stark decline in artistic standards since the Middle Ages. Van de Velde was very much a product of those 19th century beliefs and movements that demanded a return to those higher principles of art, in which art, society, and individuals create with purpose and perspective, elevating their work from the mundane to something meaningful. Throughout his writing, Van de Velde makes sweeping proclamations about the direction that art will take in the future. But the one that I found to be particularly noteworthy was when he defined the purpose of an artistic frame. He said, "The frame is the umbilical cord that attaches it to the monument, of which it is the imaginary reduced version. The imprint is evident and indelibly links the picture of a bygone era, of the present day, of all times, to the fresco, the stained glass window, the mosaic." You see, the frame is the connection that every piece of art has to what was created before. It can be physical, the literal framing of an image that forces our eyes to view it from a certain angle. It can also be philosophical, a homage to those works of the past that the artist felt particularly drawn to, creating a link to the ornate, the symbolic, the ideas that once typified the conversation of aesthetics. Yes, the cord from the frame can be broken, the frame can be removed, and art can be created in a void, but it won't achieve what it could have been, what it needed to be, without that frame. This belief in the importance of the frame and artistic heritage laid the foundation for what Van de Velde saw as the brighter future of art, which he believed was on the cusp of taking place in his own lifetime. The selfish art, the decorative art that had no purpose, no beauty, and formed the clutter of an age was soon to be replaced with work by artists whose hearts were generous and bold. Van de Velde held this optimism due to his unwavering belief that the path forward for the artist had already been opened. The view to the past was clear, and it made it possible to plot a course towards a new and exciting artistic future. one in which the artists had pride of place in society to do meaningful work. By the time Velde had made this declaration, it had been more than 40 years since John Ruskin's words had set the world of art alight with new thoughts and possibilities. The onslaught of new ideas of aesthetic and artistic expression that would come to light at the turn of the century needed the breaking of the monolithic thought that had burdened the 19th century for so long. Ruskin's work, above almost all others, laid the foundation for these breakthroughs. From the earliest point in his career, he defended the works of Turner, provided patronage to the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, and inspired the arts and crafts movement. To narrow down Ruskin's philosophy into a single, simplified form is extremely difficult. He covered many topics from various angles and wrote so extensively that it would take a life's work on its own to formulate some kind of singular notion as to his aesthetic philosophy. Fortunately for us, the inestimable Kenneth Clarke, who created the BBC documentary Civilization, wrote about Ruskin's principles in an article back in 1964. In it, he broke down what he believed Ruskin's 8 most important principles were. 1. Art is not a matter of taste, but involves the whole man. Whether in making or perceiving a work of art, we bring to bear on it feeling, intellect, morals, knowledge, memory, and every other human capacity, all focused in a flash on a single point. Aesthetic man is a concept as false and dehumanizing as economic man. 2. Even the most superior mind and the most powerful imagination must found itself on facts, which must be recognized for what they are. The imagination will often reshape them in a way which the prosaic mind cannot understand, but this recreation will be based on facts, not on formulas or illusions. 3. These facts must be perceived by the senses or felt, not learnt. 4. The greatest artists and schools of art have believed it their duty to impart vital truths, not only about the facts of vision, but about religion and the conduct of life. 5. Beauty of form is revealed in organisms which have developed perfectly according to their laws of growth, and so give, in his own words, the appearance of felicitous fulfillment of function. 6. This fulfillment of function depends on all parts of an organism cohering and cooperating. This was what he called the law of help, one of Ruskin's fundamental beliefs extending from nature and art to society. 7. Good art is done with enjoyment. The artist must feel that, within certain reasonable limits, he is free, that he is wanted by society, and that the ideas he is asked to express are true and important. And lastly, 8. Great art is the expression of epochs, where people are united by a common faith and a common purpose, accept their laws, believe in their leaders, and take a serious view of human destiny. That culminating point of common purpose completes our frame. For without these pieces of both personal, historical, and aesthetic belief, true art cannot exist. And so we have laid forward our path over the course of this new season. Ruskin's philosophy, put together so completely by Kenneth Clarke, leaves little doubt as to which ideas we are so lacking in today. The artists who were inspired by Ruskin's ideas began to chart their own daring path. To do this, to succeed and to make their work meaningful, they did something special. They worked together. They formed groups, movements, collectives, whatever you want to call them, and they created art together. In our current art climate, we don't see many of these pieces that were once so prevalent in the past. I believe, just as Van de Velde said, that in order for our future to be as bright as our past, we must learn from it, take the lessons that we can, and move forward with them, using them to make our own journey, and in doing so shape our world to provide us with that space and insight for the artist to sit down and work. This hope for art, for beauty, to find its place within our world has been the dream of the greatest artists, writers, and thinkers since the ancient world. Let's cement this belief together by listening to the words of Percy Shelley in his poem Hymn to Intellectual Beauty. Hymn to Intellectual Beauty by Percy Bysshe Shelley. The awful shadow of some unseen power floats, though unseen, among us, visiting this various world with as inconstant wing as summer winds that creep from flower to flower. Like moonbeams that behind some piny mountain shower, it visits with inconstant glance each human heart and countenance. Like hues and harmonies of evening, like clouds and starlight widely spread, like memory of music fled, like aught that for its grace may be, dear and yet dearer for its mystery. Spirit of beauty that dost consecrate with thine own hues all thou dost shine upon of human thought or form, where art thou gone? Why dost thou pass away and leave our state, this dim vast vale of tears, vacant and desolate? Ask why the sunlight not forever weaves rainbows over yon mountain river, why aught should fail and fade that once is shown, why fear and dream and death and birth cast on the daylight of this earth such gloom, why man has such a scope for love and hate, despondency and hope. No voice from some sublimer world hath ever to sage or poet these responses given. Therefore the names of demon, ghost, and heaven remain the records of their vain endeavor, frail spells whose uttered charm might not avail to sever from all we hear and all we see doubt, chance, and mutability. Thy light alone, like mist over mountains driven, or music by the night wind sent through strings of some still instrument, or moonlight on a midnight stream, gives grace and truth to life's unquiet dream. Love, hope, and self-esteem, like clouds depart and come, for some uncertain moments lent. Man were immortal and omnipotent. Didst thou, unknown and awful as thou art, keep with thy glorious train firm state within his heart? Thou messenger of sympathies that wax and wane in lovers' eyes, thou that to human thought art nourishment, like darkness to a dying flame, depart not as thy shadow came, depart not, lest the grave should be, like life and fear, a dark reality. While yet a boy I sought for ghosts and sped through many a listening chamber, cave, and ruin, and starlight wood with fearful steps pursuing hopes of high talk with the departed dead. I called on poisonous names with which our youth is fed. I was not heard, I saw them not. When musing deeply on the lot of life, at that sweet time when winds are wooing, all vital things that wake to bring news of birds and blossoming, sudden thy shadow fell on me. I shrieked and clasped my hands in ecstasy. I vowed that I would dedicate my powers to thee and thine. Have I not kept the vow? With beating heart and streaming eyes, even now I call the phantoms of 1,000 hours, each from his voiceless grave. They have envisioned bowers of studious zeal or love's delight, outwatched with me the envious night. They know that never joy illumed my brow, unlinked with hope that thou wouldest free this world from its dark slavery, that thou, O awful loveliness, wouldest give whatever these words cannot express. The day becomes more solemn and serene. When noon is past, there is a harmony in autumn and a luster in its sky, which through the summer is not heard or seen, as if it could not be, as if it had not been. Thus let thy power, which like the truth of nature on my passive youth descended, to my onward life supply its calm, to one who worships thee, and every form containing thee, whom spirit fair thy spells did bind to fear himself and love all humankind. In our next episode, we will see how one of the most controversial, entertaining, and brilliant groups of artists of the 19th century set the stage for themselves and a new artistic heritage. We will continue our discussion with the Rossettis and the Pre-Raphaelites. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.